Today we're going to take a deep dive into the world of social media influencers. Hello and welcome to The On-Ramp, an ongoing series that highlights thought leadership from the Sawyer Business School in downtown Boston. My name is Peyton Garrity, and today I'll be speaking with marketing professor Andrew Smith. Drawing on some of his research, he's going to shine a light on social media influencers, how they do what they do, and how they make money. Professor Smith, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So maybe the best way to begin is to simply ask you to define influencer.
Yeah, influencers we've probably all seen online. They're individuals who create content and they develop audiences. And they probably have some sort of sway amongst those audiences, the ability to shape their attitudes, their opinions, and maybe the behaviors that they engage in.
All right. Well, how do influencers build an audience when there are already so many other content creators online?
It is a really challenging environment for them. They have to do a variety of things and sort of iterate and try to improve over time. So one of the things that they're thinking about is what's a topic that has an audience out there already? What is something that people are interested in, like cosmetics or fashion or lifestyle more generally? And they want to find a general topic that there's enough of an audience and people are engaged around it. So that's the first thing that they do. Then they want to produce content that is appealing to that audience. And so that might be content that is helpful for them, that solves a problem, that is entertaining, that is relatable, and they'll figure that out over time. Once they've created the content, they're going to then try to engage with their audience and try to encourage them to like, share, subscribe, that sort of thing, and then create a community so people feel like they can relate to each other and to the influencer, and then they kind of learn from there. So they'll look at the analytics that they get from a platform and then try to revise, am I speaking about the right topic? Am I speaking about it in the right way? Producing the right photographic styles, and then learn and iterate it from there. But it's a very challenging task for influencers.
Well, what are some interesting ways influencers tell stories?
Yeah, so we probably follow a number of influencers online. We might, follow their TikTok account or their Instagram account. But as they get more sophisticated, what they do is tend to get bigger in the way that they tell stories. And so they might start with a single TikTok account and then they develop a second one. So there's one influencer who we've been studying named Stephanie Jarvis, and she owns a French chateau. And so she developed an initial YouTube channel where she was taking people through her lifestyle at the chateau and different sort of projects that she was working on. But she became really popular and people liked sending her gifts. And so because of all the gifts that were coming in, she didn't have an opportunity to open them and to thank people on that original YouTube channel. So they ended up creating a second channel that's strictly there for opening gifts and trying to tell the story around those gifts and thank her audience members. But then beyond that, she's really popular. So she also has an Instagram channel where she travels to other chateaus and does tours and explains them, and then has a Facebook channel and a TikTok channel that sort of bring these things together. So what we see is she's not just telling stories on a singular platform or on a single channel on YouTube, but across a variety of channels, a variety of platforms, and they all sort of come together into this meta narrative. And what that resembles is actually the sorts of storytelling that media companies engage in. So if you can think about Disney and they own Star Wars, well, there's Star Wars movies, there's Star Wars TV shows, there's Star Wars books, and so on and so forth. And what we call that is a sort of transmedia storytelling. They're bringing together these various stories from different media and allowing people to track them across those different places. So influencers are getting increasingly sophisticated in how they tell their stories.
Definitely. It sounds like a lot more work than we may have perceived. So what are some challenges that influencers may face?
Yeah, it is certainly a lot of work, especially because it's competitive. It involves this ongoing content production. So influencer burnout is certainly a concern that we hear a lot about in the media. We also hear about concerns of platforms constantly changing. They're changing their algorithm. Am I going to get an audience? Am I going to be able to break through and engage with people? Audiences are fickle. Tastes are changing. Trends are changing. So you need to kind of be on top of everything that's going on. And so it really requires an active engagement with kind of online culture and culture beyond that to stay relevant and keep up with that. And that's just a lot for people to take on.
Yeah. And now for sort of the big question, how do influencers make money?
Yeah. So influencers have a variety of ways to make money. I'm sure we've encountered some of them directly online and maybe others we haven't.
Right.
But one of the primary ways they make money is by quote unquote advertising, kind of similar to what you might see a spokesperson doing on regular TV. And so they might create sponsored posts where they get paid by brands. They might also get paid by YouTube or a platform based on the advertising they bring in. They could also act sort of like a salesperson, and so they'll have links included in their post. And if someone clicks on that post and someone buys something, then they'll get what's called an affiliate link or a commission based off of that. So that's sort of one category of ways that influencers make money. They also have turned to becoming more entrepreneurial in nature. And so what we see is people producing merchandise or creating their own product lines. We see that in cosmetics. There are a lot of well-known influencers who do that, but also people in other domains like in fitness or in health, and they'll create products around those things. And then the third sort of way that they make money is by selling their professional expertise. So many of them have deep expertise in particular areas. And so they might sell classes. Like if you are a fitness influencer, you might sell a fitness class and provide that experience for people to get involved in. Or you might be a performer. So there's an example of someone named Harry Mack. He's a freestyle rapper, and he'll host like live sessions on YouTube, and people will tip him in order to get their content integrated into the freestyle raps that he's creating. So there are these three general ways that influencers make money: advertising, entrepreneurship, and professionalism. And they can expand that. They can expand that either by being both an advertiser and an entrepreneur, where you start out producing videos and now you also sell merchandise. But you can also sort of expand across categories. Maybe you start out producing content as a fitness influencer, and then you reach broader categories of people by becoming a lifestyle influencer as well.
Wow.
So lots of ways to increase the amount of income and reward that they get from the work that they're putting in.
Definitely, it sounds like it. And this leads me to my next question. How do audiences benefit from sponsored content from these influencers?
Yeah, so typically consumers don't like seeing ads. They try to avoid it. We know we all skip through them. But one of the things that influencers bring is this sort of parasocial relationship, this trustworthiness that they have with audiences. And so if influencers are introducing new products or telling them how to use them in better ways, that could conceivably be better for audiences, and that's a direct benefit. But even if they don't like those sorts of things that influencers are doing, they still have the opportunity to benefit from more content in the future, because really influencers, if they're going to continue to produce content, it has to be viable for them. So they need to make money somehow, and sponsored content is one way that they do that. So what we found in our research is that people are forgiving or accepting of influencers producing sponsored content because they see it as a way for them as audiences to get better content in the future, more content in the future, and stay connected to the influencers who they love.
Right. And what types of sponsored content do audiences like to see from influencers? What are some examples of that?
So audiences would typically prefer to see content that is like authentic and organic, that is not sponsored, right? And so, that would be their first choice. But content that integrates closely into the lifestyle of the influencer would be something that appeals more. And then if it's not something they're interested in, content that it's sort of hidden away, like the sponsorship is not the core part of the video. Sometimes we see videos where it's all about that product that the influencer is hawking that day. But what we found in our research is that people would be more engaged if it's just sort of like a brought to you by moment towards the end of the video. And if it's more involved, then they want to hear about the experiences of the influencer, because they have that relationship, they trust them, and so they want to know a little bit more about their experiences with that product, rather than presenting dry content, like it can go this fast or it has these ingredients in it, because I can get that from a website, right? I don't need the influencer to give that to me.
Definitely. And what else have you learned about influencers from your research?
One of the things that's become really salient is just how challenging it is for influencers. We talked about those issues that they face. And so their biggest kind of asset is the audiences that they've been able to create. And so the average influencer that we see doesn't want to continue to produce content endlessly, because that grind is so tough for them. So what they're looking to do is often take advantage of that audience that they have and gain more ownership over it, rather than giving it to the platform, which can often decide, do you see that post? Do you not see that post? And so we see influencers trying to develop newsletters or create their own websites where they're bringing that audience away from the platform where they have less control and bringing it into a domain where they have more control, so they can actually get more value from the work. Because we know they're putting in a lot of work, but who's getting that benefit? It's oftentimes the Facebook, the Instagram, the TikTok, and less of it is them. And if they're able to have some of that engagement with audiences on their own platforms, that means that they can be rewarded.
Professor Smith, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on The On-Ramp.